I am finally enjoying some delicious tomatoes grown right in my living room. I wanted to give you guys an update on how my micro dwarf peppers and tomatoes are doing that I'm growing under the Optic LED GMAX 150 grow light. Now, if you recall, Optic LED sent me this new light and wanted me to try it out with growing vegetables indoors. Now, I am by no means an expert on this. This is actually the first time that I have grown peppers and tomatoes indoors, other than the tomato and pepper I tried in my Aero garden, which didn't impress me at all. So I've got a bit of a learning curve here, and there are a few things I need to tweak for next time. But overall, I am incredibly impressed, mainly with how easy this was, and I'm a little aggravated with myself that I didn't try this sooner, because I could be enjoying fresh grown tomatoes and peppers in the middle of winter using this method versus the alternative, which is not having any fresh tomatoes for 6 to 7 to 8 months of the year, or relying on vastly inferior supermarket produce. So let's take a look at the specific varieties I've got here. This first one is Tasty Bites Yellow. There is a red and an orange in this series as well. But you can see just how healthy that plant is, how very productive for such a small plant. And this is a little snack sweet pepper. So that's about all the bigger those fruit will get, but they will turn bright gold when they are ripe. I've also got Fajita, which is a hot pepper. And these ripen from green to red. You can see some of them starting to ripen here. And again, this plant struggled a little more than the Tasty Bites, but I've got some good sized fruit on there. And these do have a nice spice to them. And then I've got all my tomatoes. So this first one is a variety called Siam. And I actually missed these by about a week. We were gone for a week, and these really were at peak ripe during the time we were gone. So you can see the plants are kind of starting to go downhill at this point, but there's still a lot of nice ripe fruit on there. These have done really well under this grow light, and you can see just again, like how compact and productive these plants are. Now, if you saw my Aero garden results video where I got to taste my first hydroponic tomato, you know that I was less than thrilled about those results. But I am happy to say that these have turned out much, much better. They really have some high bricks. Very impressively sweet, good flavor. My only complaint is that texture is just a tad mushy or mealy. That might have more to do with some of my nutrients than the actual varieties. I'm not sure. But there is nothing wrong with those tomatoes. Actually, I'm just going to sit here and eat the whole plant, I think. Those are really good. Plus, I have not had a fresh tomato in, I don't know, since last October. And you know the first ones always taste the best. So I'm really pleased with that variety. I've got another Siam back here, and this, you can really tell what I'm talking about with these plants are starting to go downhill. They really should have been picked at least a week ago. But look at that production on there. For such a small plant, I'm just really impressed. A really nice bite-sized fruit. Now this is a variety called Red Velvet. You can see this is a tiny little 4-inch pot, and I still have this teeny tiny, very productive, healthy tomato. This one is a little bit later. As you can see, those tomatoes are not quite ripe. They should get to probably closer to that red color. These are still a little bit orange. So I've not been able to taste test that one yet, but that one looks really nice. And then my last variety here is one called Cocoa, and this is a chocolate or black cherry tomato. And you can see this has a bit more of like a weeping habit. And it probably has the nicest sized fruit of the bunch. Those cherries got quite large. The sugars aren't quite as high as they are on the Siam, but still a really nice flavor, a little bit more complex. And again, you can see how nice and healthy that plant is. And you may notice on this one that the fruit set is not quite as nice. That is because I did something really stupid and took advice from the internet Someone told me that I could just put a fan on my plants and it would be enough to pollinate them. Well, it was not. This one sat a little bit lower, and so it was getting blocked by the other plants. And so you can see all these skips here. These are places where it sat blossoms, but those did not get pollinated, so I have no fruit there. So I would have been better off just hand pollinating like I did with my AeroGarden tomatoes with a little paintbrush. But lesson learned, I will do that next time. And then my very last plant, I had not planned on putting this under the Optic LED light, but this was a lettuce leaf basil that I actually had in my AeroGarden. It was outgrowing the AeroGarden and crowding out all the other herbs. So I transplanted this, pod and all, into this pot, stuck it under the light, and it has done much, much better under the GMAX light than it was doing in my AeroGarden kit. So now I have fresh tomatoes and basil a month before I will have any tomatoes out of the garden, which is pretty cool. And if you're interested in more of the specs on this light, I will link the first video in this series up above so you can check that out as well. So overall, I have been really, really impressed with both this grow light and these varieties. And I'm very excited to continue doing some indoor growing experimentation with the Optic LED GMAX 150 grow light. I've got quite a few winter projects planned. I've been watching CB's Greenhouse and Gardens, and he does a lot of hydroponic growing indoors, and I'm very excited to try some of his do-it-yourself hydroponic setups, especially for lettuce, because that's one thing that I really miss in the middle of winter. And I think this light will be perfect for doing that. So stay tuned for more veggie growing experiments under the Optic LED light. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.